Hello guys, this is Will. I had said previously that I wanted to do a little tutorial for you on how to model some warship shapes in Fusion 360. So I figured what better way than on a project that I'm already working on, which is the complete redo of my Jean Bart superstructure. Today I'm working on a triple 6-inch secondary gun for Jean Bart. So let's get started. One of the first things that you want to do on any of these kind of projects is you're going to need to insert a canvas. So let's just go ahead and start fresh. Let's close all these files out up here. So in your new Fusion 360 window, use the Insert tool. Insert Canvas. Insert from My Computer. And then navigate to wherever you have your chosen file. Now, when I'm working, I like to have the ship oriented correctly. So as you can see right now, we are backwards. The back of the ship is facing the front in Fusion 360, so we're going to do a horizontal flip. Something else that I like to do is I like to try and have the canvas on the correct plane. So I am going to bring the canvas down because we're going to be working on the secondary gun turret, not the entire ship. I'm going to bring the canvas down and over. So that way the bottom of that gun turret is on that blue line, or as close as I can get it. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, we have our canvas placed. Now, we need to make sure that our canvas is scaled properly. But before we do that, I just realized something. You can see down here, we have this little timeline bar. I don't normally like working in Fusion 360 with timeline enabled. So we're going to go up here to the document settings, right click, and click on Do Not Capture Design History. Every person is going to be different in how they like to use this software. I do not like design history. It removes some of your potential options and some of your workspaces, and it's just not how my workflow works. So we're going to turn it off for this tutorial. Anyway, we need to make sure that this canvas is scaled properly for the actual model ship. You can make your parts at whatever size this is right now. However, when you try to put a hole for a gun barrel or a bolt hole or anything like that, when you scale it up, it will not be the correct size. So, in order to scale this, we're going to create a new sketch. And we're just going to click here on this plane. And then we're going to come over and we're going to drop a line. Drop a line on the ship's nose. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the stern. And now we're going to measure using the Inspect tool. We're going to click on the line at the front, and we're going to click on the line at the back. And we have been given 0.651. Navigating over to the IRC website, we see here that Jean Bart is supposed to be 67.75 inches long. Bringing up the calculator, we can easily do the math, and we now have a percentage that we need to increase this model by, this canvas by. So we bring up Fusion 360 again, hit close, hit finish sketch. This sketch will never be used again. You can go ahead and delete it. Select the canvas, edit canvas, and down here where it says scale plane XY, type in 104.07. And here we are. This sketch is now the correct size. Now, this is nice because this one picture gives us both the side profile and the top profile. However, I like having the top and side profiles where they actually would be on the model, instead of having to do all of my side sketches up here and my top sketches down here. So we're going to take this canvas and we're going to click Move Copy. We are going to create a copy and we are going to rotate it 90 degrees. Then we're going to click OK. Oh, no, we're not. That is not what I wanted. I like having an additional canvas that gives me the top-down view directly where the top-down view should be. So we're going to go to Insert Canvas from my computer. We're going to insert the same drawing again, except this time we're going to insert it on this plane. We already know that it's too small, and we already know what the scaling factor is. So we're going to go ahead and scale it up by 104.07%. Now we need to line up the center line on this top-down drawing. You can see it here, courtesy of the French engineers. We need to line that up with this red line. So I'm going to do my best here. And as you can see, this is not perfect. In most instances, we are working with ship plans that have been microfilmed in the 1950s. So do not try to make this too perfect. You will chase perfection and will never reach it. But once I'm satisfied, that is reasonably close, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And now at this point, this sketch, this canvas, and this canvas are now lined up, at least over the gun turret that we care about. All right, now it's time to actually start this. What I like to do is start with a top-down sketch. So we're going to go to the top view. We're going to zoom in on our gun turret, and we're going to click on Create Sketch, and click. When you click, it's automatically going to snap the camera to the origin point. So XYZ000 in Fusion 360. Let's go back to where our gun turret is. And I'm modeling the middle one. They are identical. I just like the middle one because it's in a little bit less crowded of an area. Now that we're here, let's go ahead and just create a center line. This center line will be its own sketch, and it is going to be our mirror line for every other sketch we make. Okay? So now we're going to create another sketch immediately. We're going to go back up here to our mirror line. The next thing I like to do is I like to create a sketch that shows us where the barbette is going to be underneath the turret. Create, circle. I like using a 2-point circle for this. I'm going to zoom in on where the barbette is, and where that barbette meets the mirror line, I'm going to click to drop the first point of our 2-point circle. I'm going to move down the mirror line until the barbette looks like it's roughly the correct size. Now, don't be afraid to round up or down on this one. by small margins. Remember, IRC rules dictate that barbettes need to be scale. On a secondary gun turret like this, which is normally not going to have a gun mounted in it, you could round down to 2 inches. You could probably safely round up to 2 1/8, which is what I think I'm going to do here. And now I'm going to finish this sketch. So we have a mirror line and we have a reference for where the barbette is going to be in the future. Now it's time to actually start drawing the turret itself. One more sketch in the top-down view. Now, we have a mirroring line, and we can't be positive that we have our plans perfectly overlaid. So, you never want to try to draw the entire object. If you do that, you could end up with an object that is skewed or bent or warped in some way. Only ever draw half the object and then mirror it. That way, no matter what, the object will be symmetrical. It may just be a little bit too big or too tall. So, with my mirror line right here, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start placing lines. Don't be afraid to manually adjust the distance, the length of your line, or the angle of your line. Sometimes the snap points in Fusion 360 can be a little wonky. If you believe that something should be a 90-degree angle, don't be afraid to go in there and just manually type that in. And that's it. We've successfully created half of our turret. Go ahead and just double-click on those lines to select them all. And then up here, you can click on the Mirror tool. Click Mirror, Objects 6 selected. Make sure it has the lines you want mirrored. Mirror line. Select your center mirror line and hit OK. At this point, you can finish sketch. We've now created the top-down profile of our turret. Let's go ahead and transition now to the side view. Oh my gosh, we're upside down. Something you'll notice is our top-down view is not where we want our turret. One solution to this is to grab that canvas and just pull it down. Once again, you don't want to try to chase perfection here, but you would like to try to get this line, which represents the sketches we've just made, to be as even with the bottom of the turret on the plans as you can. And that'll be good for our purposes. It also looks like we might not be perfectly straight here. If you look and we turn off our barbette, our sketch for the top-down profile goes past the back of the turret. So we need to move that other canvas one more time. And all we're trying to do now is line this up. And it looks like that did the trick. Perfect. So we have our top-down view. Now it's time to create our side profile sketch. So go ahead and create a sketch, now looking at the right side. And just like for the top down, this doesn't need to be super perfect. Let's just go ahead and start placing some lines. Do not try to draw in the rangefinder slash director that's on the roof of the turret. We will come back to him later. Finish sketch. And now we have a side profile in addition to our top profile. Now we can begin actually working with some bodies to make this turret a reality. Let's go ahead and click on our top-down face. And now we're going to extrude. Go ahead and extrude upward. You want to make sure that you extrude far enough that this body protrudes past the top of the side profile. Hit OK. Now, select your side profile drawing and hit extrude again. You might need to hide the body you've just created in order to actually click on that face. But once you've clicked on the face, go ahead and re-show the body so you can see what you're doing. Make sure that on this part, you select the direction of the extrusion and you make it symmetrical, because we would like this to happen to both sides of the object. Go ahead and pull it out and see what happens here. It thinks you want to use this side profile as a cutting tool, which we know is not correct. Go here to Operation and change Cut to Intersect, and then hit OK. Now we're left with a body, which is where those two sketches intersect in space. It looks a little bit like a Jean Bart secondary gun turret, but we're not quite there yet. There's another plane that we unfortunately do not have plans to work with. We need to cut this turret along this front face, back face technically, the front face of the turret where the gun barrels will protrude. How are we going to do that without a stern-on view of the ship? There are a few options. One, you could find a stern view of the ship. Two, you could use a three-dimensional reference, like a model from a video game. But I want to caution you against the idea of trying to use the video game model itself for this project. 3D models out of video games are bodies made out of surfaces. They are generally not solid objects, and they are extremely dense in terms of polygon counts. They're created by artists in programs that are not really designed for engineering, whereas Fusion 360 is an engineering application. So they don't translate over very well. Use it as a three-dimensional reference, just something for you to look at and try to figure out. Don't try to just copy it. Now, the final option is to use our two viewpoints that we do have to extrapolate where we need to cut this. So let's bring our canvases back. Now let's look from the side here. You'll notice on the plan drawing these lines. These lines exist because that is where the face changes. Let's look at the top. Same thing here. I wonder if we drew a line here and we drew a line here, if we connected those two, we would technically be creating a triangle. And we'd have enough information to make a plane that would then let us cut this turret. So let's do that. So what we want to do is select the top face of the turret body we've created. Right-click and create sketch. I'm going to use the line tool to create a line that's coincident with the edge of the top of the turret. perpendicular to that top front edge and goes all the way to the back edge and is perpendicular to that edge as well. That's it for this line. Finish sketch. Now, we're going to do the same thing on this side face of the turret. Right-click, create sketch. Line tool. We're going to create a line which is coincident with that line and coincident with this line and follows the line on the plans. Finish sketch. Now if you look, we've created 2 points in space. Technically 4 points in space. You only need 3 points to create a plane. So we're going to go over to the surface workspace, create loft. And we're going to click on the first line and then the second line. If we turn off our turret body, you'll notice that we've created this flat surface. Let me remove the canvases. We've created this flat surface. Click OK. This is going to become our cutting tool for cutting our turret body to match the real ship's turret. But we need to do it on both sides. So let's select this surface, create, mirror. The mirror plane is going to be the plane that we're working on right now. So click that there, and you'll see that it's created a ghost copy of the object we're copying. Use this so that way you can preview and make sure that you're actually doing what you want. Go ahead and click OK now. At this point, we are ready to start cutting our turret. So let's go back to the solid workspace and let's show our turret body again. Click on this tool, which is Split Body. Body to split is going to be your turret body, which for me is body 1. Splitting tools, if you hold shift, you can select multiple. It's going to be our 2 cutting faces, body 2 and body 3. Now you'll notice it's only cutting exactly where those bodies are, which is not exactly what we want. So make sure that you click Extend Splitting Tools. OK. Now we have 5 bodies because we've split our turret body into 3 separate pieces. Let's go ahead and hide everything except body 1. And there we go. We're starting to get something that really looks like a Jean Bart secondary gun turret. Let's bring our canvas back up and see how we've done. Well, that's looking pretty good. But there's one more thing. If you look, there's another line here. And if we look from the top, you see these lines here. We need to make sure that we show that on our Jean Bart gun turret. So we're going to need to create another sketch on the top of the turret. But this time, let's create the sketch on this back piece. Because if we create the sketch here, it's going to be along this plane. And we don't really want that. This plane is parallel to the x-axis, meaning it's flat pretty much. So select that surface and go ahead and hit Create Sketch. Just like before, every time you create a sketch on an existing body's face, it pulls that face information for you. So now we're going to create this cutout for our turret. Something to remember is these plans are once again not perfect. Even though they're the original shipyard plans, they're 80 plus years old and they've been microfilmed and then digitized. As you can see, the turret we've created, some of these corners do not quite line up. This point here, for example, and this point up here. So using your best judgment, try to figure out where you would like this to go. I think I'm going to use this point right here. And I'm going to draw this line out to about here. And I'm going to bring this line into the mirror line, which we need to make sure we have enabled. And I want it to meet the mirror line at a right angle. And just like before, we're going to mirror this along the mirror line. And now I'm going to hide the body and the canvas. We need to now connect this so that way this is a solid face for us to actually work with. So let's bring our body back here. And we're going to click on our sketch point and just work our way down the turret to preserve its geometry into our sketch. We can hide the turret body again. And as you can see now, we have created this face. Finish sketch. Now we're going to take this face and we're going to extrude upward, letting it form a cutting tool for us. And hit OK. That is starting to look a lot like a Jean Bart secondary gun turret. Let's bring up our canvas again. You can see here, it's not exactly perfect, but if you try to chase perfection with this, you could be here for hours doing a half-an-hour job. So now we need to model one of the last big physical features of this gun turret, and that's going to be the rangefinder / director that's mounted on the back. We're not going to do it the way that we've done the actual turret, though, because there are some overhangs and whatnot on this rangefinder that are not exactly easy to notice when you're looking at the plans if you blindly follow my directions. So let's take a look here. We can see this shape right here that's underneath this overhang. This shape is actually a cylinder because this rangefinder, I know from reference photos of the actual ship, is mounted on a cylinder. And when we look at it from the top down, it's a hexagon. Actually, it's an octagon. There's 8 sides. This octagonal shape does not go all the way down to the turret because of the small cylinder that it is mounted on. So the first thing we're going to want to do is model that cylinder. But we don't know much about the cylinder. So let's create a sketch here on the side profile. And we're going to create 2 points. And now we're going to measure between those 2 points, just like we did for the length of the ship. And we end up with 0.535 of an inch. That's the diameter of our cylinder. Now, let's measure how long one of these lines are. 0.123 of an inch. I'm going to round that up and say 0.125 for a nice eighth of an inch. We need to create a cylinder that's 0.535 in diameter and eighth of an inch tall. So let's finish our sketch. That sketch is just measuring and is useless to us, so we can go ahead and delete it. Let's look at the top profile again. And with our mirror line still here, we're going to click on Create Cylinder. Create Cylinder is just a very quick way to create a solid body without needing to create a separate sketch. So with the Create Cylinder tool active, go ahead and click on this flat surface, which is the rear roof of the turret. And we still have our mirror line here. So go ahead and find some place that's about where you think the center of that cylinder should go, and go ahead and drag it out along the mirror line until you reach about 0.535. And we're going to let it extrude upward by 0.125. And there's the beginning of our rangefinder. Now, the next easiest part of our rangefinder is going to be another cylinder. So let's go ahead and create cylinder on this side profile. And I'm going to put the center as close to this dot on the plans as possible. As you can see, the dot on the plans is quite large. So I'm just going to guesstimate a spot, and I'm going to pull this out. And I'd like to make this a nice round fraction. 0.25 is way too big. 0.125 is way too small. So I'm going to go for a nice 3/16 of an inch. And now we need to extrude it outwards. Oh, it's trying to cut. We don't want to cut. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select this, and we also don't want it to join for a reason why I'm going to explain in a moment. So let's just select new body for now. And while we have the extrusion still active and we can adjust the length, let's transition to the top-down view, so that way we can make sure we get the rangefinder arm the correct length. Looks like it wants to be about 1.17. Go ahead and click OK. Now we need another one. So the same way we've mirrored everything else, we're going to select that body, create, mirror, mirror plane, and we're going to check our preview to make sure it's what we want. Okay. Perfect. Now we need to create that octagonal shape from the top profile. We already know that that octagonal shape does not reach all the way down to the turret roof. It stops where the cylinder base stops. So we can create our sketch for this piece on the top face of that cylinder. I'm going to work from the back simply because the front's getting a little crowded. Okay, I've created 1/2 of my rangefinder roof. I'm going to mirror it along my mirror line. And now I've created the entire thing. Finish sketch. Now we need to extrude this upward. Make sure that when you go to extrude this body upward, that you select the entire body, because there are multiple shapes here because of the different faces that were projected into our active sketch. So you need to make sure you get this face, and this face. And now we're going to extrude upward until we're roughly the correct height. I'm going to say a nice 1/4 of an inch. Once again, it's trying to cut. We are going to let it join. And now when it joins, it's going to join the two rangefinder arms and the rangefinder base to itself. We're going to hit OK. Let's turn our canvases off, turn our sketches off, and let's take a look here at our finished product. We've created a John Bart secondary gun turret. It's very simple. From here, you could go as complex as you'd like, but at this point, I believe that this is good enough. It's a combat model. If you were building for scale accuracy, we've already lost. One thing that we definitely do need for a dummy secondary gun turret, though, are holes for gun barrels. I strongly recommend not trying to print gun barrels. It normally never works right. 3D printers do not like cylindrical objects. What I do recommend is using a sketch to drill holes in your model, so that way, after printing, you can then use metal tube or wooden dowel rods to make your dummy gun barrels. So, looking at the back face or the front face of the turret itself, we're going to create a sketch. I'm going to select this face here, and I'm going to hit P to project it into our sketch. And now I'm going to create a line right down through the middle of the turret and hit OK. Now, by projecting the turret face like that, I can use this line right here, and you see how it's created a little triangle icon? That means that we're at the middle of that line. I'm going to click, drag it through the center line to meet on the other side. Now, if we assume that the gun barrels on this turret, the middle gun barrel is actually in the middle of the turret, we can place a point there. Then we can make a line from the center line to the edge again. And the same thing on the other side. And then we can place points in the middle on either side. Finish sketch. Now that sketch is way in the back. Well, it's actually at origin, and we already know that our body here is not at origin. So we can fix that by clicking on the alignment tool and aligning the bottom line of our sketch to the bottom line of our turret face. Oh, there we go. Now we're going to use Fusion 360's Hole tool. For placement, click on From Sketch, and then select your 3 sketch points. Now, right now, Fusion 360 is giving us an error. Oh, it thinks we want to drill the wrong way. Oh, that's not correct. Fusion 360 seems to believe that we want to drill the wrong way. So, in order to get around this, we are going to use the Hole tool and click on, no, okay, it still doesn't want to cooperate. Fusion 360, what the heck? I'm sure that someone here who is smarter than I am. Oh, flip direction. There we go. I knew I'd figure it out. So let's go ahead and just select our sketch points here. And it's up to you to determine what diameter you would like to use for your gun barrel holes. A scale size would be extremely small. I'm going to use a nice 1/8 of an inch because that's half the size of our 1/4 inch boat gun barrels. And I'm going to have them go into the dummy turret 1/2 of an inch. Hit OK. And there we go. Now, if you want to see what this is going to look like, you can reach in here and you can select the circular faces at the bottom of the holes that you've created. And you can actually extrude them outwards as new bodies to see what it will look like with gun barrels. And we're almost done at this point. The only thing I'd like to add is our barbette. So you remember our barbette drawing from earlier? We're just going to go ahead and we're going to extrude that downward. Let's say an 1/8 of an inch. And there you go. That is a perfectly acceptable quality Jean Bart secondary gun turret. Using these principles, these basic abilities that you've hopefully learned by watching this video, you can apply them to anything. When you get into more complex objects with curves, you have to get into using splines in your sketches instead of straight lines. But this is essentially how everything in Fusion 360 for Model Warship Combat can be modeled. Everything from simple secondary gun turrets all the way up to something like this, which is a much more complex, hollowed out main battery gun turret. All this is a bunch of sketches that have been extruded and cut and aligned together. Little details like this, these armor buckles can be added, these periscope ports can be added. It's all about how much time you'd like to spend modeling your model. There you go. I hope this was helpful. If it was, buy me a coffee or something someday.